Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this in-depth ag forecast for Australia. All right, we got a lot to unpack in this forecast video. I'm going to first cover Aral, which of course you're watching here on infrared satellite. It's a pretty powerful tropical system, and unlike what I thought about a week ago, Aral will be making an influence in parts of Western Australia. So we're going to cover that at the beginning. I'm going to walk you through some of the near-term precipitation patterns and compare them to recent precip plus the drought monitor. I've got new NDVI data that I think that's worth taking a look at, but we're going to immediately stretch this thing out into a longer range forecast through almost the first 3 weeks of May, looking at some model similarities and some of the things that are controlling the pattern. Then at the end, I want you to hang around for the end. I've put together a list of analog years, and I'm going to show you what those years are, and I want you to scrutinize it. I want you to look closely at it and tell me what you think in the comments, if you will. And I'm also going to show you the new long-range model data. So we got a lot to do here. So this is a pretty powerful tropical system, and you're looking at cloud top temperatures. And what's important to note here is that some of these, grays getting all the way down here, these are cloud tops that are at like minus 80 to minus 90 degrees Celsius. This is some deep, cold, upper level cloud, and the deeper and colder it gets, the more intense the system is. And as we watch where this is going to be going, I just want to show you the current outlook on this. It's currently at 140 knots in wind speed. This would put this at a Cat 4, and it's expected to maintain that as we work our way through the 17th. Now, as it approaches land, it is expected to weaken, and the question is how far inland is it going to make its influence? All right, so this is what we're really going to be paying attention to here in this part of Western Australia. So we can look at it a couple of different ways. This is model guidance from the European model looking at the tracks of this system while it's maintaining very low pressure. And so there will be some rapid de-intensification as it comes onshore into this area. But as we look at it here, you can tell that this is going to be producing some locally very heavy rain. Now, this is not the only system in town. We actually will likely be watching another spin up here. Of course, this is Aral, and this is our deep, subtropical low that's spinning between Australia and New Zealand. We have to keep an eye on as well. So let's not waste any time and just get right into what this looks like. So I'm going to use the European model to kind of get a glimpse at where this is going to go. And as we play this forward, there's a couple things I want you to watch. Through the rest of the day on Thursday, we have a secondary component to the flow across Western Australia, and that includes a frontal boundary that's going to be bringing in some meaningful precipitation into Western Australia, kind of the second time they've had some decent precipitation as of late. That front holds itself together even as it gets into parts of South Australia, which we need the moisture here in a very bad way. So I'm liking the fact that we see that as this deeper low, the one that was between Australia and New Zealand, moves toward New Zealand. Now, at this particular point, where are we in time? This is Saturday afternoon. Aral, according to the models, has weakened and is now moving here onshore in this part of Western Australia. And we watch the spin up of another weak low right in through this area. So this is Saturday afternoon and evening, working our way into early Sunday morning. That same low that kind of moved through Western Australia, brought in some of the precipitation into South Australia, begins to spin up right here, bringing better chances through Victoria and parts of New South Wales as well. And anytime I see rain, I'm just going back and forth over Saturday here, seeing rain in this area is critical given how dry things have been. Meanwhile, we'll watch what's left of Aral to sit and spin here for a bit, and then we're going to play this out farther, and we're going to see that early next week, Monday, Tuesday, we have some coastal showers here while the remnants of Aral move through this area. And if we go from Monday to Tuesday out into Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to see quite a bit of cloud cover and rain in this region. By next Wednesday, we are going to be watching yet another front come into parts of Western Australia. Again, critical rains needed in this time of year in this area. And we have to ask, is more of this moisture going to be making it farther to the east? So as we play it forward, right now the models are attempting to swipe that front, again, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, across our southern coast. And we're going to see if we can get much more precipitation out of it. Now, before I flip over and talk more about total precipitation out of this, let's get in here and have a good look at our winds. So as we kind of watch Aral come through, and we're keeping an eye right here, how strong are these winds going to be is the question. Now, you notice, I'm watching right there, Aral weakens pretty quickly. And so we do not see really powerful wind gusts onshore according to the European model. I'm just rocking back and forth between Wednesday, Thursday, Friday here. And we're keeping a close eye on. Now, the total precipitation out of this is going to be critical to watch and understand. And again, using the European model, let's just kind of play this out over the next 10 days. I mean, look at this. We're talking somewhere between, maybe 30 and 50 mils of rain coming in here with this current front. By the time we get into Saturday, we watch better rains attempt to spread around Adelaide, South Australia along the coast into parts of Victoria. How much? I mean, it's not like it's an overload on precipitation, but it is moisture, and that is critical to be getting into this region this time of year. This is out through Monday. Playing it out into next week, we saw the storms continue to hit this area before the next front slid through Western Australia by next Wednesday, Thursday. So we're adding more into this region. Granted, getting more of this moisture back into here would be critical, but it's still there. There's rain and clouds coming through. And as I just go all the way out there to 10 days, this is what we end up seeing. So that's just a quick glimpse of where this is going. And reminder to all of you, you can access these maps anytime you want on my website, agweather.com. Now, what's important about all of this is to put it in the context of recent precipitation. So I want to start off with just showing you what happened in the month of March. And we're looking at where in March we saw decent moisture and where we were missing. And I can find holes pretty quickly here. There's a large area right in through here, and then in parts of New South Wales, Tasmania, that was very dry. Sections of Western Australia did miss out on some decent rains. And since we just started this new month, let's go ahead and have a look at the month to date so far in April, just to show you why I'm excited to see some moisture returning to this area, given how dry the start of this new month has been. Now, I find it difficult to find really good resources on your most recent precipitation. I'm working on it, trying to get better and better information, but I am going to show you your latest drought monitor from Northern Australia Climate Program. And it's important to note that we just had this very intense pocket in through here of severe to exceptional drought that lined part of our coast. This is an extremely productive part of Australia, so to see that drought in place means that the rains I just mentioned coming through would need to be significantly more. Now, it's an odd time of year to go looking at NDVI data, but I'd like to do that with you anyways. So we're going to come over to one of my favorite sites here. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick out only 4 regions that have crops grown. So that's why the map looks the way it does. You can see these crop regions outlined. But if we start in Western Australia, we look at where our NDVI is compared to average. We're actually right on average. Okay, so right on the historical average. South Australia is a different story, though. We are at the bottom of the distribution of years starting in the year 2001. This just shows you the stress in this area due to lack of moisture. If we come over to parts of Victoria, again, very close to the bottom of the distribution. Understanding that as we go farther into the season, especially as we get into, the July, August, September, then October, November is when our NDVI should be the highest. From there, I would like to show you parts of New South Wales recently making a bump up, back just a hair above average. And finally, Queensland, which has been quite wet, as you saw in the maps, their NDVI values have made a huge jump upwards simply because of the green up that's occurred with all of that moisture that's been coming through. And again, I'm primarily talking about this, right, which we've been covering in detail. So to come back to this one more time, where are we seeing the next couple of weeks? Well, over the next 7 days, this map shows us where we're expected to be wetter or drier than normal, and by how much in terms of the European model's predictions. If we just slide this forward and look out there 10 days, remember we have 2 fronts coming through in the next 10 days here and more storms along the southeast coast. That, of course, is from Errol and the subsequent spin up from a tropical system here. But as we get out there fully into week 2, this is the map, and you continue to see more frontal passages in Western Australia, keeping it just a hair wetter than average, while Queensland through the interior of New South Wales back toward Adelaide is expected to be on the drier side of normal. Now, I want to look at this another way with you real quickly, and I want to go up to some probability maps. So I'm trying to see who over the next 10 days has the best chance at seeing at least 12 millimeters of rainfall. So this is a probability map, and you can see the colors down here, 50 to 100% on who's got the best chance at getting at least 12 millimeters of rainfall. And it's really just highlighting those 3 areas we talked about. When we step it up to a full 25 millimeters of rainfall, again, we see where the storms are expected to be here. And we also take note of where the frontal passages are, again, mainly to the east of the primary productive ground, but still moisture coming into this area. If I go ahead and take you up to 50 mils of rain, this is what I've got. So then after seeing that, you should then see this, which is who stays dry. So this is the chance at staying under 10 millimeters of rainfall through the next 10 days. And this is going to be who stays at a very, very small, almost negligible amount of moisture over that time period. So I find these probability maps quite instructive. Now, very quickly on the temperatures, our next 5 days, cooler than average with 2 frontal passages happening here. Really just 1 frontal passage in the next 5 days. Much warmer than average into parts of, New South Wales, Victoria, and South Australia. Temperatures averaging 5 degrees warmer than normal. Day 5 through 10, we now start to see a bit more of a normal pattern in terms of temperature across much of Australia. And then day 10 through 15, we're quite cool after we've seen these next few frontal passages come through. Now, speaking of these fronts that are coming through, I wanted to take note of what the southern annular mode has been doing, because really since the beginning of March has been quite positive. And there are some forecasts expected to take this back down toward average, but notice how large the gap is here, or the spread, I should say, in the strength of the southern annular mode. Now, what does this mean? What are we looking at here? A good way to kind of examine that is just to look at jet stream level winds. So this is way up there, 6 miles above our head. We've had very strong jet stream level winds that have been much farther to our south. This is this positive southern annular mode setup. And what I often find instructive about this is to not just look at the absolute winds, knowing that we are in a westerly wind belt here, but to look at what it means compared to average. And this is what's interesting. Way far to the south, our jet stream level winds have been much stronger than normal since the beginning of March. But we've actually had at times weak jet stream level winds here that are anomalously in the wrong direction. They're going against the west. But it's not that we've had a wind coming from the wrong direction. It's just so much weaker that when you make an anomaly map, it makes it look as though it's going backwards. And I think that's really important to understand what's going on, because during this same time period, we had a huge surge right here, in the trade winds. And that is a very La Nina-like thing to see happen here in March through the midpoint in April. And so we start to question, how do these things influence the longer range pattern? And that's why I wanted to kind of race a bit to get here, knowing that you can look at your local short-term forecast anytime you want on my website or other things. What I hope my value add to you is what we're about to go through. So here's the first thing I want to look at. When we try to figure out where the atmosphere is going to be putting down the best conditions for rising and sinking motion leading to clouds of precipitation, sinking motion leading to the development of big high pressure cells, from today all the way through the end of the month, I'm seeing a lot of suppression happening in the Indian Ocean and rising motion just to our north over, for example, Indonesia, just as one spot. And we have to make sense of why this is the case. And I think a lot of it has to do with this kind of last gasp of trade winds from La Nina. So everywhere that you see these blues in through here, a little bit of green mixed in there as well. So I'm talking about this area. Over the next 15 days, this is where we still have a surge in those trade winds, much like what I just showed you in that map. The reds represent anomalous flow in this direction, meaning a lot of this is going to be meeting here. And as we watch this La Nina kind of give up and go fully into INSO-neutral conditions as we go forward, this is going to keep our best rising motion, or the position of the MJO, somewhere around phase 5, 6, and 7. And we can see that when we look out there at a forecast from April 20 to May 20. Now, do you note what I see? There's this stripe right in through here of drier conditions. We're a bit wetter in this part of Western Australia, not overly wet, but we're on the wetter side of the distribution. And we can see along the coast wetter conditions here, while the MJO just keeps the best rising motion to our north. And that does mean we could expect to see possibly more tropical cyclones spinning up in this area because of that supportive upper level flow pattern in that region. What's important for me is when I look at these maps, do we have multi-model support? So this is the April 20 to May 20 outlook on precipitation anomalies from the European, and this is the GFS, which is another global model. And it too has kind of this drier stripe with wetter conditions here, a very active setup with the MJO, although it is not as wet over in parts of Western Australia. But to see the pattern, I'll go back and forth between the two, look quite similar, there's information in that we have to consider. Now, what I'm thinking about with all of this is, how does this translate through the rest of May into June and July? And I want to talk to you about that. Because what we've noticed is the way that the ocean temperatures have been behaving. And this is what's allowed me to start to pick out some analog years for you going forth. Now, our last big video, I couldn't do it. I had no confidence in my analogs. I'm feeling a little bit better about it now. And by the way, confidence in a meteorologist is a dangerous thing. So we got to be careful here. But take a look. When you look at the global sea surface temperatures, look at that. That is the end of this La Nina. We've seen some warming happening here, a lot of warm water there, but a big cool swath here, and a lot of the Indian Ocean is cooler at this point. Now, directly surrounding Australia, we're doing, for the most part, warmer than average ocean temperatures. Now, do you have this in the back of your mind? Just keep a look at this map, because I'm going to show you this one next. What you're looking at now are the years that I think are good analogs to this year. And I'm going to separate one of them from the rest as I do this analysis for you. But I got 96, 99, 06, 08, 11, 17, and 12. 12 is what I'm going to pull out. So what do we see? Well, we had the cooler water there, the cooler water here. There's warm here. There's the last kind of gasp of La Nina. We were warm there. And in some of these years, especially 2012, we were also warm here, although collectively they weren't. So I find these to be good analogs in support of a forecast. So let's do this. How did things look by the time we got into June, July, and August? And what does this mean overall for us? So there's this evolution of cooler water here, some cooler water there, a lack of an Indian Ocean dipole signal. What does it mean? What does a fading La Nina mean for our, April, May, June, July, August timeframe? So here it is. This is what I've got for you. I went and pulled out 6 of those years and looked at April, May, June precipitation anomalies. Okay, 6 of those years, April, May, June anomalies. Now, what are the years? Top left, 1996. Top middle, 99. Over here, 2006. On the bottom left, 2008. Bottom middle, 2011. And bottom right, 2017. Now, you pause and have a good look at these. But these were the April, May, June accumulated precipitation anomalies. And I start to see some themes in this, okay? Like, for example, drier here. See that? There's a lot of years where we saw this drier signal in that area. And as your eye just starts to wander over all of this, what did we also see? Well, we saw a lot of wetter than average conditions here. Do you notice that? That's a very common theme, meaning that the tail end of this La Nina tends to just leave a lot of rising motion over Indonesia, not necessarily supportive of excessive precipitation for much of Australia. And that's what you could do with this. You could look at this and go, gosh, I don't necessarily see any of these analog years as being super wet, and some of them have little signals of being drier. Now remember, this is a 3-month average that we're putting together here. This is, a 3-month anomaly. So it's not picking up on some of the subtle nuances of those timeframes. But if you want years from me, there it is, 96, 99, 06, 08, 11, and 17. Now, as I mentioned, I pulled out one year in particular that I'm finding to be, I think, a stronger analog than others. And it is 2012. And the ocean temperatures are informing me of this. That's what I'm using. Now, 2012, kind of throughout the Murray River Basin, we were on the drier side of average. Tasmania wetter, parts of Victoria wetter, just off the coast wetter. Interior parts of, Western Australia were drier. But I feel as though this is my best analog for you going forward, is 2012. All right, what happened in all of those years by the time we got to, the heart of our winter, June through August? We tended to see a lot of high pressure to our south. We tended to have lows that kind of flanked Australia. And I'm going to wait later to see what this meant in terms of precipitation with these analogs, but I wanted you at least to see that, because before we go much farther, we just need to think about what it could mean closer to the near term. So just for reference, when we look at those years, June to August precipitation, we were extremely wet here, but we had these kind of drier stripes across Australia. Take note of how active of a monsoon it was for parts of India near the Ganges River. We had dry conditions around the Black Sea. We had dry conditions in the western Corn Belt of the United States. That's huge. We are very worried about this for this year in the States. But this is how it all kind of panned out in those years when all stitched together. Now, what do we do with this? Well, we need to compare this to the new model forecasts. And I'm not happy with the new models. For example, this is the new seasonal outlook from the European model, April, May, and June. And it's just got so much warmth here. It's not reflecting the current cooler pattern across parts of the Indian Ocean. It's not getting the magnitude of the cooler water here correct. And certainly the water that's coming through here is colder than being let on. So I don't like this. I think it's off. But I'm going to show it to you because it's information. So if we looked at the April, May, June precipitation pattern from the European model, do you see that stripe in through there of drier weather? That's what I saw in the analogs too, right? See how wet it is to our north? See how active of a monsoon India had? It was wet in the North China Plain, but dry around the Yangtze River. We had, in April, May, June, wet around the Black Sea. But as we went forward into the season, how about June, July, August? This is midsummer. It got dry in the Black Sea. Indian monsoon was much stronger than average. Major drought risk is what's still being called for in the western Corn Belt and central plains of the United States. By June, July, August, it's gone wetter into Western Australia, wetter through that stripe that I was concerned about in April, May, June being drier. But I'm telling you, this model it's got the ocean temperatures not right. So I'm struggling with it, but I needed you to see it so that you know what we're paying attention to as we go forward. But there is another model I want you to see. It's called the NMME, and it was just released. This is its, let's go back. I'm sorry. That's the May, June, July outlook here. And interestingly enough, it's wetter in Western Australia. There is a little bit of a signal for drier here. Very wet Indonesia. Same story. Look, May, June, July. Drier Black Sea, wetter Manchurian Plain, North China Plain, wetter India, drier Western Corn Belt. So, I mean, you can see it just as clean as I can. That's some consistency there. And then finally, this is the midsummer Northern Hemisphere, midwinter Southern Hemisphere. And just like the European model, it looks like the whole southern half of Australia looks wetter. While we're risking drier midsummer for Black Sea, but India, China, I don't see a strong signal. So is there some consistency in the modeling? Yes. Does it match up with my analog years? Only partly. And that's why I want you to go just pause the video and look at these things so you can assess this on your own and have a good idea. Or go back to your own records and think about these years, 96, 99, 06, 08, 11, 12, and 17. Okay, I've got one last thing to tell you, and that's just a quick international update. This is the next 10 days. I was looking for a weather problem on Brazil's safrinha crop, and it is not there. It's just not. There's rain. Plenty of it. We're drier in Rio Grande do Sul, Uruguay, and parts of Argentina, but it's not making much of a splash internationally. Wetter throughout a lot of Europe as we're going through spring here. We've had massive flooding. We think that the flooding that hit our Mid-South 10 days ago might have been as much as $80 billion of economic loss. This is a lot of replant in this area for corn and soybeans. They have winter wheat there that just got washed out. Major problems in this area. We're expecting a lot of severe weather in the coming days. We're already at 230% of average on our severe wind reports we've had so far this year. It's been unpleasant here for many people with respect to springtime in the States and trying to get things going. And then we're all worried about drought coming later on in the year. Elsewhere, along the Yangtze River, it's finally gotten wetter. And you can continue to see all the wet weather that's to our north and now the precipitation pattern, as I explained earlier, for Australia for the next 10 days. So this is what I've got for you, and there's still more work to be done. So I'm going to take the next couple weeks, continue to analyze this, and we're going to work on getting some really solid information out there for you. But that's my latest thought and the process I went through to get it. So I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.